1967. They were probably getting planes into the air as this was happening. I don't know exactly the timeline. Like I showed you, I don't have everything in the world pulled up right in front of me any more than you do. So maybe they had planes in the air, but were the planes in the right place in the air to do anything about it?
Well, I mean, how could you not have planes? You had planes. They even announced that they were monitoring the big targets, and they knew that the Pentagon would be a number one target. I mean, it's if any building's going to be hit, it's the White House and the Pentagon.
And how do you cover 360 degrees of sky, all elevations? You're talking about finding a grain of sand in a desert.
I don't agree with that at all. I think that's impossible. They knew exactly where these planes were going. These planes were. Oh, what do you mean bullshit? How do you mean bullshit? They got the whole story laid out.
And before 9/11, you had to coordinate with each fucking airport to get proper internal coverage. You did not have perfect map coverage of the internal of the country using radar prior to 9/11. We still don't in many cases.
That's just unbelievable. I mean, you have the most secure building. It's unbelievable. There's no way the most secure building in the world was left wide open for an attack an hour and 20 minutes after the attack had already started. That's impossible.
Do you know how long
There's no way. There's no way. That you have to be dumb. You only have to be dumb to believe in that. You have to be really stupid. You try and fly a plane into the Pentagon. See how close you get. I mean,
I don't want to die, so no thank you.
I don't blame you. But
whether I did it or not, I would die, so no thank you.
Seriously, there's no explanation for it.
We're coming up to the 90, close to the 90-minute mark, and I know that there are some people who have sent in some questions, and Steve and I have a couple questions, so we'll let Steve go ahead and ask anything that you have, and then we'll do super chats at the end.
Yeah, I got a couple first, for at least two things to discuss first. But to get this out of the way, visual contact for planes on low flying altitude planes is extremely, extremely difficult. It's still, to this day, very difficult with a 360 degree range. I mean, you're not going to be able to visually see what you think you're going to see if you do a handoff contact. So if I'm having from one transponder to another transponder, that's fine if I have an active transponder. But for visual on the ground, it's extremely difficult to do handoffs. Any pilot, I'm sure, will tell you that. Anyways, so my first question is this. You had mentioned about Larry Silverstein, and you had said about the pull it, right? They had contacted 12 of the top demolitionists of all in the world, demolition companies in the world, and I can name them if you really wish, but none of them have ever said that is ever used in the industry. So what are you using to determine that the term pull it is actually used in demolitions? Because none of the top 11 companies that do demolitions ever have said they use that term. It's nowhere in the industry standard, and they don't use it. So where are you getting that information that they use it?
Did you say 11, by the way?
Yeah, would you like me to name them for you?
Okay, that's a good number. I'm glad you said that. Yeah, of course not.
Oh, no.
I mean, who?
Oh no, no, Jeff.
Oh no,
please don't, Jeff.
Well,
hang on. So do you have a company that uses that? Do you have a source of a company that uses that terminology in the industry?
I've got 33 companies that use it.
Okay, can you give us one, and we can actually look into that? I can quote them right now. I can give you the 11 companies I'm using as a source. Brandenburg Industrial Service.
I'm glad that you do that. And there's no chance that
let me finish.
There's no chance that any of those companies.
Can I finish, please?
Yeah.
I have 11 reputable top demolition companies, none of which use that terminology. I'm asking you for one that does as a reference, and you don't have that available right now.
Well, I mean, did I come with that prepared?
You can get it though, right?
Was it?
You could get it. You can get it, right?
I'm sure I probably could.
We'll take a look up.
Yeah.
Sure.
Hold on.
Yeah.
If you either
how do you explain that? Let me ask you this: how do you explain it? How does it make sense?
We'll explain that, but let me ask you a question.
You made the decision. Play the clip of Larry Silverstein and ask your audience to make it. Why did Larry Silverstein just renew the whole insurance?
Mute Jeff, please. Listen, Jeff. It's not going to work that way, okay? I told you at the start that we would be very respectful with you. We have been, and you have to let people finish. Now, what Steve asked you was a very reasonable question. You said that you had 33 names that you could name off of businesses that use that term. When we asked you, could you provide that, you said, I'm sure that I could. Meaning, I don't think that you can. So are you just making up the number 33 because that's a numerology term with Illuminati?
Yeah, I thought that. I mean, thought it was obvious. I'm not saying that I know. Okay, I don't have that prepared. Right. So I can't really entertain that because I don't have that prepared. Go ahead.
Okay. Next question.
Can I ask one? Can I ask? No, just 1 second. Can I just ask why Larry Silverstein would say that? Can you explain why? What it meant?
Yes, because the New York Fire Department actually uses that terminology, but that means to actually pull the first responders, civilians, and any reporters that are in the neighborhood. So when they say pull it, there literally means to withdraw from the active scene. And by the way, I went to firefighting.
They mean retreat.
I don't know if anybody knows that, but in the Navy, you have to train to be a military. You have to be a firefighter as well. And I actually did do JP5 jet fuel fires, and it burns about 500 to 800 degrees. It's very hot, which leads into my next question. And by the way, to be fair, Dragon, I am going to slightly correct you a little bit, and then hopefully you'll take the correction because I know you know about this stuff. You had talked about tensile strength, right? Well, tensile strength is actually a deformation in the horizontal latitude, right? Compression would be the opposite. What happens is in the jet fire fuels, because you mentioned the polyurethane, polystyrene, and other things that have effect to do a synergenic effect with kerosene, you have what's called Young's modulus, which is basically affecting the stress with the strain, right? And so you have what's called elastic or plastic deformation that normally will go back. You have a certain amount of point that you'll be deformed, but it'll go back, correct? So it's that elastic deformation that it reached the point that it could not go back and ever be, have the same not the tensile strength, but the elasticity.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. I meant elasticity, not tensile strength.
Correct. So it was elastic deformation that I knew you were trying to get to, and not necessarily tensile strength. Minor correction, but we want to be pendants here. So anyway, so Jeff, to your question, when you're talking about steel, would you agree that as you heat a metal up, it is going to lose structural integrity, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so now you have this building that's comprised of steel that has a very high temperatures, very, very high temperatures, that's causing elastic deformation. Is that building now going to be able to hold the weight of the floors that are above that steel that's being heated right now, right? So how do you explain the fact that when you have a rise in temperature or you have a rise in strain on the metal itself, why it would not collapse? What is actually going to keep that metal from collapsing? Because you keep on saying that, having this idea that planes hit the building and it gets really hot, nothing's going to happen. Well, that's not how physics works. Of course, you're going to have elastic deformation. It won't melt, as Dragon pointed out, right? You need much higher temperatures to melt the steel, but you don't have to melt it. You only have to lose structural integrity, and that's what happened. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm. No, I don't agree because first of all, I'm not a controlled demolition expert. I'm not an architect. I'm not an engineer. I don't understand the physics. I'm not going to pretend that I do. I'm just going to say that there are a lot of people that are of those accreditations that totally don't believe in the official story. So it's not like I'm not the person that you're going to bring. Yeah, I'm not the person that you're going to bring on that is going to be the best to debate the whole structural sort of steel and what it takes for steel to start to collapse and the whole physics behind it. That's not what I do. That's not what I am. And I don't think I ever gave the illusion that I was that. I am telling you that it is my opinion that the towers were all brought down by controlled demolitions. Now, I think that I look at the World Trade Center, which was not hit by a plane, as a perfect example. And that's what I say is that, well, okay, you could push the argument. You could say it to me, and you could even say it to me. I could even say this. I could say, hey, you know what? They say that the planes actually hit the towers and the towers came down as they said. I can actually, I don't believe in that, but I could at least entertain that notion and still say that it was choreographed by the New World Order and that Building 7 was a controlled demolition. So I don't even have to necessarily, spend time with the actual two World Trade Towers. I could just look at Building 7 and say, well, that's where you have to put those explanations. You have to explain how it's possible for this modern, super, strong steel structure to collapse due to internal fires. And so that's what Inane Dragon did.
I literally just did. World Trade Center had collateral damage. It actually had videos of it being on fire. Now, again,
there's going to be a certain I was there.
Let me finish. There's going to be a certain point in the structural integrity of that steel where you go from elastic deformation to plastic deformation. Matter of fact, Ned pointed out, and he's actually very much correct in the live chat. Elastic deformation will return, plastic deformation will not. And you have a point where you're no longer be able to go back to its original shape. So you have plastic deformation, and that building is going to buckle. That's how it works. What you're saying doesn't correspond to reality.
With the rest of
this, doesn't match up.
With the rest,
it doesn't match. It doesn't match up to what we understand.
Would that all collapse?
Yes. If you
how is it possible?
Do you know what a supporting? Do you know what a support beam is?
How is that possible? When they bring down a controlled demolition, the entire frame, the entire structure of the building is lined with explosives to bring it down, because they have to bring down the columns in order for the building to come down straight, like in its own footprint. It's so other people don't get damaged, other buildings don't get damaged.
I have no idea where
so what you have what you have with Building 7 is a perfect. I mean, it's one of the most perfect controlled demolitions. One of the best examples that is out there. It's what 6.6 seconds it came down.
Maybe I can answer this.
Yeah,
Jeff.
You're wrong.
I just looked it up, Steve. In this article, they're talking about how the design of Building 7 wasn't to the norm either. If you took out one of the lower columns of the building just as a whole, the way that it's designed, it wouldn't distribute the weight evenly, and it would cause a vertical collapse even then. Just if you were to take it out without any other kind of structural damage to the
right.
Yeah. So the design could be a factor as well. It wasn't. Nobody could foresee what happened. So just the design load took it down. Why is that not more simple?
If you want to believe that, that's fine.
Well, hang on, one quick, Jeff. What this really makes a difference here. You've even said you have no expertise in this whatsoever, none. And I'm not saying anybody here does. Although I did take metallurgy, and I know Anane has very advanced classes in engineering as well. So you're literally saying that you are looking at reality, going, well, I'm somebody who's never taken a course in physics, and I'm going to tell people that have all about things like structural integrity, all about things like how a building should fall, all about, well, you are actually saying this. You literally are saying
you asked me for my opinion. You're asking me these questions. I'm answering the questions.
Okay.
You're answering.
And people
I'm telling you straight up, I have no
back it.
Yeah, but you asked me the questions. You asked me on the show. You asked me these questions. I answer the questions. I give you my opinion. That's what my whole thing. That's why I was saying. Like,
why does your opinion matter?
Well, then why did you bring me on if my opinion doesn't matter?
I'm asking.
I think my opinion does matter. I think people are concerned with the information that I'm providing, and I think that.
Jeff,
go ahead.
If you have no expertise in this area, nothing that you can point to and go, these are the reasons why I have this belief. Let me show you how the physics works. All you have is nothing. You have vacuous statements that don't correspond to reality, that don't correspond to what we know about physics, and don't have any substance to actually convince anybody beyond just, oh, well, I'm going to believe this guy.
Except for the 3,000 plus architects and engineers that are out there that believe fully that the entire thing was a controlled demolition. Why don't you bring one of those guys on or gals and interview them?
I'd love to, but let me ask you a question here. How many engineers do you think there are in the world?
I don't know.
In comparison to 3,000, I'm going to tell you right now, it's probably less than 3 standard
I
deviations.
imagine
so 99.7%. And wait, let me finish.
Yeah.
This is based upon scientists, because there's only about 3,000 scientists that supposedly that don't believe in evolution. But you're looking at a very small minority compared to the rest of the experts. So if 99.7, and again, fuzzy, 99.7% of all the engineers are saying this was not a controlled engineer, what makes that 3,000 you're citing any more valid? What are they looking at? What is their physics, and why should they be taken seriously? Why should anybody believe them over the 99.7 that says no?
Okay, first of all, 99.7, that's interesting. I don't know where you got that number from, but I guess you're just taking a guesstimate. Secondly, probably the worst thing for a career move would be to be a conspiracy theorist. They like to make examples of people like that. It's very bad for your employment. It's very bad for getting ahead in your corporation. So the amount of people that would honestly be in those positions and honestly answer to put their lives, their families in jeopardy, well, that might be 97.7% of people that wouldn't do that. So I think the people the 3,000 plus that did, that shows